Sometimes you'll hear the spiritual directive, allow everything to be as it is. Right? And that's something that can be easily misunderstood or misused. And it's meant for a very specific thing, as all spiritual instructions are. They're useful for a particular point, not useful before and not so useful after. But they're useful to seeing a particular thing at a particular time. So anyway, the spiritual truism that I wanted to talk about briefly is allow everything to be as it is. If you're a Christian, I mean, the way it's worded there is, thy will be done. It's another way of saying the same thing. So allowing everything to be as it is doesn't mean that we have to like it. Doesn't mean we have to agree with it. Doesn't mean we have to condone it. It just is an acknowledgement. Yes, in this moment, that is how it is. Okay. And what that does is that it's not, it can be understood as, well, then I'd just be a doormat, right? I just allow anything to be, and what about all the evil in the world? And, how does that make any sense? But that wouldn't be the correct interpretation where that's pointing to. It's really just an acknowledgement, like in this moment, that's how things are. But it's seeing that without the judgment, without the blame, without the should and shouldn'ts, without the right and wrong, all of that, because all of those judgments is as if we were looking at it from a much higher altitude, right? So almost giving ourselves godlike authority, right? I know what should happen, and I know what shouldn't happen. But we don't, actually. All we can say with certainty, this goes back to what we were talking about this morning. If we just stay with what we know rather than what we are speculating about, if we stay with what we know in this moment, that's how it is. Right? And then we can wonder, well, what's the purpose of that then? Right? And the purpose is to remove ourselves from that place where we sit in judgment of everything, where the mind is always trying to decide what's right, what's wrong, what's best for me, what's to my advantage, what should be happening, what do I want, all of those kind of questions. And we just back up and see, okay, what's happening? And then once we've freed ourselves from the role of being the one to decide what's right and wrong and what should and shouldn't be happening, then we're free to actually look at the situation and see what it may need or may not need. Maybe it needs our involvement, maybe not. Maybe it needs us to say something, maybe not. And then we're just, there's a freshness to whatever the response is then, because we're not coming from should and shouldn'ts, right and wrong, which is always from the past, always from conditioning. Right? It's then because every situation is unique. And so when we just, get out of the business of blame and assignment of right and wrong, then we're free, again, to the limits of our understanding in that moment to respond. Again, for the highest and best good of whatever the situation is. So it simplifies things a lot, because sometimes there's something for us to do, sometimes there's not. And it also implies that we have the understanding to tell one from the other. Right? To know when it's the time to say something, and there's the time not. The time to, stand up and say the difficult thing, or maybe it's a time just to, it's not that important, it's okay. And the only person that is in a position to know that is yourself in that moment for that situation. The same response a week later may not be the right one. So it's just always coming from that sense of freshness. But the freshness gets tainted if it's coming from that judgmental position where we think we know how life should be. There's life as it turns up. We see that. And then there's opinions. Yeah, but it should be like this. But we don't actually know. All we can say for certain is, at this time, it looks like this. Turn on the news. Today it looks like this. Tomorrow it may look a little different. Maybe not. We don't know. But then it frees us to then respond, to what, rather than use our energy to sort of sit in judgment all the time, just that psychic defensive stance. Me and life, life is, it's got a lot of things right, but, in this case, I know I'm right and life's wrong. You won't win that one. So that's the deeper meaning of let everything be as it is. Again, it's not agreeing with it. It's not becoming a doormat. It's freeing ourselves from that judgmental position and deciding, okay, in this moment, without making the other person the enemy or bad or evil or whatever, we may totally disagree with how they're behaving. We may think that they, should be in jail or worse. But it's also possible to see that behavior, if we've really taken a look at our own conditioning and see the extent to which that has affected our own life, and then we see someone else's conditioning operating like that over there, perhaps we could have some compassion for it as well. Might not agree with it. Maybe they need to be in prison, If we can really see that their conditioning, like ours, was taken on in innocence, and then therefore we can cut ourselves some slack, and we can cut the other person some slack too.